Many antagonists have a clear motive, opposing the player in various ways for the sake of evil. Some aren't nearly as cut and dry though, their motivations are complex, and oftentimes, when the hero can seemingly do no wrong, they can have a solid counterpoint or two. Let's take a look at 10 villains who are like this and whether they were ultimately justified. N. Pokemon Black and White. In many ways, you have to feel for N. Orphaned at a young age and raised by Pokemon, he would have very little interaction with humans aside from Getsis, who would claim to be his father from his own nefarious ends. Though he doesn't have much animosity toward the player, a lifetime of seeing Pokemon hurt by humans skewed his perceptions. N dreamed of having separate worlds for both species, letting Pokemon live in peace without any interference from humanity. Unfortunately, this was all a ploy by Getsis to get Zekrom or Reshiram on his side and reign over the world. Despite being the one manipulated, N would eventually apologize and return in the sequel to help the player out. Paul Serene, Quantum Break. Paul Serene is far from the most stable individual, but he did witness the end of all time and is dying from Chronon syndrome. To that end, he tries to stop protagonist Jack Joyce from going through his actions, running Monarch Solutions and creating a facility to allow researchers to solve the end of time conundrum without suffering its effects. Sure, he killed Jack's loved one, probably because time travel, but he's ultimately doing all of this to save humanity. The fact that Jack couldn't potentially go down the same path as him when the story comes to a close further indicates that they may not be all that different. Illusive Man, Mass Effect 2. Between pushing for the rise of humanity, committing acts of terrorism, holding questionable experiments in the name of biotic advancement, and being responsible for hundreds of thousands of deaths in Mass Effect 3, it's hard to sympathize with the Illusive Man's methods. Even in the third game, his plan of controlling the Reaper's technology and to use it for humanity's benefit seems asinine. The views of Cerberus, despite being in favor of humanity, were viewed as extremist by many. And yet, the Illusive Man saw the threat that the Collectors and Reapers posed to the galaxy in Mass Effect 2, bringing Commander Shepard back from the dead in order to oppose them. Even though it was done to eventually further his own interests, the Illusive Man and Cerberus acted when the Council wouldn't, intervening when colonies of humans were being kidnapped by the Collectors. By the end of the trilogy, he was pretty much under the Reaper's thrall of indoctrination, but for a time, no matter how brief, he wanted the best for humanity. Hugo Strange, Batman Arkham City. In theory, you could see some semblance of an ideal plan in Hugo Strange's Protocol 10. Arkham City was essentially set up as a way to gather all of the criminal elements and wipe them out in one fell swoop. For someone who has been living in Gotham for years, seeing villains seemingly beyond redemption like the Joker, the Penguin, Killer Croc, and so on wiped out would have made sense. Because Batman, wasn't going to be the one to ultimately kill all of them. The moral dilemmas of the same can be debated endlessly, but in the end, it's directly against Gotham's justice system and Batman's own ideology. For all the good intentions that Strange and the true mastermind, Ra's al Ghul, may have had, it was ultimately for naught in front of the Dark Knight's determination. Goro Akechi, Persona 5. Throughout Persona 5, Goro Akechi comes across as a superstar detective with a mysterious side. However, he's revealed to have been the one instigating mental breakdowns at the behest of Masayoshi Shido, either to silence any detractors or for political favors. Though he seems like a soulless hitman, he's actually Shido's illegitimate son. The latter abandoned his mother, who subsequently passed away. This leads to Akechi being alone throughout his youth and going from one institution to another. Akechi has very little by the way of allies. His fans are keen to turn on him, Shido views him as disposable, and even Yaldabaoth uses him in his quest to control the world. Throughout it all, Akechi expresses a desire for revenge against Shido and ultimately destroy society and to rebuild it. Joker and the Phantom Thieves may have opposed him, but overall, they took a different path, seeking to actually cleanse the world instead of going with a scorched earth approach. Ganondorf, The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker. For all the times that Ganondorf came across as this overwhelming entity of evil, his presence in The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker is decidedly less so. The Triforce is his main objective, and he rarely indulges in killing unless it's absolutely necessary, such as killing the sages that powered the Master Sword. He never even tries to kill Link until the end due to being left with no other option. It's eventually revealed that Hyrule was flooded in ancient times due to Ganon escaping his seal and causing widespread destruction. This led to the world as a whole being mostly wiped out, Ganon's race included. Though he's adamant about attaining the Triforce to rule the world, he also seemed to care about the environment. Perhaps he would have sought redemption or become completely corrupted again. Either way, Link and Zelda have to stop him. GWYN, Lord of Cinder, Dark Souls. The Age of Fire is one of prosperity for the Kingdom of Lordran, one that its king GWYN fights to uphold. He fought alongside the other Lords of Cinder to defeat the dragons and overthrow their position in the world. And just when it seemed that the Age of Fire would end, GWYN linked the first flame to ensure its continuation. For all intents and purposes, the chosen undead, should they defeat GWYN and begin the Age of Dark, could be viewed as the antagonist. Granted, none of it ultimately matters since the cycle perpetuates continuously as seen in Dark Souls 2 and 3, but it's the thought at that time that probably counts. AZAI, Mark of the Ninja. As head of the Hisomu clan, AZAI wants his clan to prosper, but without having to rely on Sumi, flowers whose petals are used to create the cursed mark and which have effectively died out when the game begins. To that end, he provides the protagonist with the final mark in order to plunder technology from Hestian's services. This eventually led to a war between Hisomu and Hestian, ending in the latter's defeat. But because the mark causes its wielder to descend into madness, the protagonist suffers hallucinations and is torn between killing AZAI or himself to end his rampage. Choosing to kill AZAI causes the marked ninja to become a true tyrant on top of effectively destroying the clan. Granted, committing seppuku isn't the nicest end for our hero after everything he's been through, but it's hard to fault AZAI's bigger picture approach. OCELOT, Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots. Few video game villains have as storied a history or involvement with the main character as OCELOT. Having met Naked Snake during Operation Snake Eater, he later becomes part of the Patriots, serving as a successor to the Philosophers to create a world befitting of the boss. Even with a rift in this group, OCELOT would help create a body double for Big Boss following the destruction of the MSF to help take revenge on Skullface. Several decades later, he would join Foxhound, working under Liquid Snake but also acting as a double agent for Solidus. Throughout Metal Gear Solid 2, it was revealed that his personality was overtaken by Liquid due to possessing the latter's transplant arm. Even with Solidus meeting his end, it wasn't the end of the Patriots or OCELOT by a long shot. All of this led to Metal Gear Solid 4, Guns of the Patriots. The world was at war after the Big Shell incident, and it was the driving force of many economies. PMCs made a killing, and Liquid OCELOT owned 5, combined under one single company known as Outer Haven. Though his plan was to lead an insurrection against the Patriots and control the network, he knew that the latter would respond by sending Solid Snake via Campbell to stop him. This would eventually lead to Snake destroying the Patriots using the virus inside him. Everything that was done, from hypnotizing him to fool the Patriots into thinking he was Liquid Snake to manipulating Solid Snake, was done with the purpose of ultimately bringing them down. His reasons for this are manifold, but in the end, it's thought that OCELOT simply wanted to be free from the overbearing rule of the AIs. In a way, you could also interpret it as him wanting to continue Big Boss's vision of soldiers always having a place in the world due to the formation of Outer Heaven and not suffering from any external control. Pagan Min, Far Cry 4. At first, Pagan Min seems like a bad guy. Kyrat is under his oppressive rule, and the murder of one of his subordinates in the opening seems to indicate that he's an unstable killer. As it turns out, he's actually not the bad guy. If you listen to Pagan at the end, it's revealed that Mohan, Ajay's father who founded the rebellion, originally sent his mother to spy on Pagan. The two fell in love though and had a daughter who was killed by Mohan, who was then subsequently killed by Ajay's mother before fleeing with her son. Upon revealing all of this, Pagan then leaves, having fulfilled his purpose and allowing Ajay to run the country as he likes. By comparison, the rebellion's leaders aim to turn Kyrat into a nightmare, regardless of who you choose to lead, and to think staying and listening to Pagan at the beginning leads to the best possible ending. And with that, we've reached the end of this video. Have anything to say? Let us know in the comments below. Also, we upload new videos every day on Gaming Bolt, so please consider subscribing as it really helps us out. Thanks for watching.